Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of the primetime newscast on Equinox Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital. Well, I am Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, a gendarme officer in the Republic of Cameroon allegedly shoots to death a 22-year-old young man in a fight on Christmas Day in Kalim subdivision, in the Bambutus division that is in the west region of the Republic of Cameroon. Other persons were injured in the incident. The gendarme officer is behind bars and a 5-year-old child is crushed to death in another road accident. President Paul Biya promulgates into law the controversial bills on the promotion of bilingualism in courts across the country, and the decentralization code. The bills were adopted by Parliament. A 5-year-old child has been crushed to death by a truck in Banga in the Mongo Division littoral region of the country just hours after celebrating the Feast of Nativity. The deceased family or the child was crushed to death by a truck in a road accident. Details with Hermine Luga.
Just some hours ago, they were celebrating the Feast of Nativity. Today, they are in tears. It's an unfortunate situation for the family of 5-year-old Marvelous, who has given up the ghost after being crushed by a truck while crossing the road in Banga. The 5-year-old child simply came around Banga to spend the Christmas feast with family. It's a bitter pill to swallow for the family a few hours after the feast day. According to inhabitants here, the accident has been provoked by a pile of sand poorly disposed along the roads, penalizing circulation, thus resulting to accidents of this sort. While the mortal remains of little Marvelous was being taken to the mortuary, forces of law and others visited the scene site to study the exact course of the accident while proning vigilance along roads.
And an officer of the National Gendarmerie is behind bars. He's accused of having shot to death a 22-year-old young man in a fight on Christmas Day in Galim subdivision in the Bambutus division west region of the Republic of Cameroon. Other persons were injured in that incident. Usman Jikan Gabriel has more.
A Black Thursday for the family of young Rodrigue, who was caught by a stray bullet at a drinking spot in Galim, subdivision west region of Cameroon. Gendarmes started shooting at random because some people were fighting inside the bar. As they discovered that the crowd was increasing, they shot in the air to disperse them. As the policemen shot in the air, the gendarme officers started shooting at random. One of the stray bullets touched a guy on his leg. The bar owner struggled to close his door, but the gendarme forcefully opened the door and shot this man. As he turned, he discovered that his intestine was all out. Unfortunately, he died on the way to the hospital in Buda.
Tous ces intestins étaient dehors. On l'amène à l'hôpital. On arrive à l'hôpital que l'hôpital d'ici ne pouvait pas intervenir. On l'a amené à Buda. Arrivé à Buda, il n'a pas pu résister.
The incident, as the wife of Rodrigue narrated, occurred at this bar late Wednesday as Christmas celebration was at its peak in Galim. At dawn, some courageous inhabitants went back to the incident site. There, we saw a bullet lying on the ground, and in the hospital, another victim of the shooting of Galim, Albert Procy, was in pains as he received a bullet on his leg. I was in the bar drinking with a friend when some people started fighting. Though they were sent out, they continued fighting. As I went out of the bar discussing, I heard a gunshot. The first didn't touch me, but it was after the second gunshot that I discovered I couldn't move my leg again.
Deuxième coup de feu. Quand on me tend, moi aussi je veux fuir, mon pied ne bouge plus.
At the gendarmerie brigade in Galim, some persons were spotted around the zone, but an attempt to get an explanation from the officers about Wednesday's incident failed, as they said nothing. However, all were surprised at the behavior of their colleague, whom they knew was a very kind man.
Cameroon's head of state, Paul Biya, has promulgated into law the controversial bills on the promotion of bilingualism in courts across the country and the decentralization code. And of course, that bill on the decentralization code had chapter 4 on the special status for the northwest and southwest regions of the country. And the two bills have been stiffly criticized by politicians, civil society actors, and even some parliamentarians. The bills were adopted in the parliament, and of course some members of parliament, including Honorable Awudu Mbaya of the Social Democratic Front, lamented over the fact that the decentralization bill was adopted without any amendment. And he criticized that, indicating that the parliament, notably the lower house of parliament, has been transformed into a post office, or better still, what is known in French as chambre d'enregistrement, as all the amendments that were brought to the bill on the decentralization, notably by opposition members of the house, were simply rejected, and the bill was adopted as it was sent to parliament, and it has been promulgated. Same for the bill on the promotion of bilingualism in courts across the country. The bill now promulgated into law, which allows magistrates to use either French or English in courts, no matter where or in which region they find themselves. And that bill provoked common law lawyers who went on strike in the northwest regional capital, Bamenda, protesting against the bill and describing it as another threat to the common law system. And of course, that bill has been promulgated into law by the President of the Republic. PhD holders were on strike in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé, notably at the Ministry of Higher Education, have declared their determination to continue with their strike action until they get answers to their plight. Notably, they want to be recruited into the public service, and they were in a meeting with the Minister of Higher Education, and they have described that meeting as barren. Details in this report by EQUINOXE.
These 222 disgruntled PhD lecturers, while going to listen to the Minister of Higher Education, thought it was a Christmas package prepared for them. They were expecting good news regarding publication of a new list that will receive their recruitment in universities. But the outcome was not satisfying for them to end the over 2 weeks sit-down strike as the explanates of the ministry.
He promised us that he was going to forward our complaint to the hierarchy and to see what would be the response from hierarchy. Meanwhile, after that, we decided that we're going to stay in place, put ourselves together and wait for a concrete response while we remain seated here at the Ministry of Higher Education.
They maintained it is impossible to rubbish the sit-down strike and are bent on testing the consciences of these authorities.
We explained to him why we feel discriminated during the first phase of this recruitment. We explained to him that we are annoyed because of the fact that in the results that was published, some master's students were taken in. We explained to him that we are annoyed because in the results that were published, some candidates were given 2 posts. We explained to him a number of irregularities. We explained to him that a number of part-timers are also annoyed because they have been serving the state universities for quite a long time, thinking that that was going to help them in a recruitment process as such.
From the barren meeting with sad looks, the striking PhD lecturers sat consoling themselves with their Christmas tree as a way to honor the birth of their Savior, Jesus Christ. Not even intimidation, brutality, harsh sunshine, or thunderous rainfall, they say, can stop them from seeking justice.
And the council of Mundimba, like many other councils in Anglophone Cameroon, is battling to survive in the midst of the Anglophone crisis and its devastating impact on the functioning of the councils in those two regions. The council has met and has adopted a budget for 2020, targeting problems like inadequate supply of water in the municipality, bad roads, and many other underdevelopment challenges affecting Mundimba in the southwest region of the country. There is just a report.
The Mundimba Council has adopted a 2020 budget.
595,642,782 francs CFA.
And as Mayor Esele Elizabeth, Mayor of the Mundimba Council, made public the budget, she also tabled the council priority project. This town called Mundimba don't have water to begin with. The structure at the Mundimba main market are makeshift, and farm to market roads seem forgotten among other social amenities that are absent. The Mundimba Council for 2020 will concentrate on the above priority projects. Officiating the council session, Fowang Lawrence, the senior divisional officer for Ndian Division and supervisory authority of councils in this division, reminded the councillors what it means by adopting a budget on the one hand and realizing the said budget.
This budget is not money kept anywhere, meaning that the councillors themselves have the duty after this to go down to their respective quarters where they come from and sensitize their respective population, especially on the need, first of all, to pay their global taxes. I've also had time to congratulate the Lord Mayor of this council.
While lauded Mayor Esele Elizabeth for keeping the Mundimba Council afloat in this turbulent moment, the senior divisional officer for Ndian Division also noted that for those who might not be retained after the February 9 polls, they will always be remembered for their time spent at the Mundimba Council. The council session also witnessed the installation of Musaki Emmanuel Mutaze, the newly appointed Secretary General of the Mundimba Council.
To put in place, first of all, the functioning mechanism of the council institution, getting the right persons, putting them in the right positions, and doing some kind of personnel assessment to restructure the council system. And at that moment, we are going to see who is supposed to do what at the level of the council.
And as a team, they all agreed that to deliver, they must go to work immediately.
And in Christmas news, the Bishop of Boya in the southwest region of the country, His Lordship Emmanuel Bushu, celebrated Christmas in the Boya Central Prison, where he encouraged the inmates, including detainees of the Anglophone crisis, to turn away from the way of evil and embrace the way of love and embrace the ways of God. And of course, these ways of God and love are incarnated in the child Jesus Christ, born to save man, according to Holy Scripture. Derek Jato has more.
Go forth in the peace of Christ.
The Bishop of the Diocese of Boya celebrates Christmas in prison with this inmate of the Boya Central Prison.
We want to celebrate Christmas with them. Christmas is a time of great joy for the Christian people. So those who are here in prison, they cannot easily come out and join the community. So instead of them coming to the communities come in to be with them.
The annual visit of His Lordship Bishop Emmanuel Bushu falls in line with Caritas' mission, which is to cater for the underprivileged, and to its director, Pierre Ernest Chinda, inmates are also the underprivileged.
Share love and free the world from misery. and we are targeting the underprivileged and the needy, and the prisoners are part of the underprivileged and the needy. This is why we are here in the prison.
The occasion also witnessed some inmates of this Buea Central Prison receiving blessings of their confirmation.
We ask this through Christ our Lord.
The prison authorities, on their part, while receiving the consignment brought in by Caritas of the Diocese of Buea, said the visit and the gift were timely.
We thank very much His Lordship, Bishop Emmanuel Bouchou, for this visit. I think that this visit is a mark of love towards those who are in conflict with a law.
This 30th edition of Bishop Emmanuel Bouchou annual visit to prison at Christmas has been described by inmates of the Buea Central Prison as good works of a living saint. For Christ himself said, I was in prison and you visited me.
Though the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political parties announced plans to boycott the February 9, 2020 municipal and legislative elections in Cameroon, the party continues empowering the women in that political party of the opposition to be exemplary mayors and, of course, members of parliament. In the Cameroon, members of the women's wing of the party have rounded up a training in Yaoundé on how to better their skills, and of course in the politics, to better their skills in politics, economic and administrative affairs. The training was chaired by the National Women's President of the party, Awasum Mispa Free, President of the Women's Wing of the CRM political party. Take a listen to her.
The seminar of today actually is integration of women in politics, where we are detailing the role of women in administrative practice, economic roles, and political practice. So actually our intention is to see that women are being trained to be able to prepare mission reports, to be able to execute mission statements, and also to be able to build their economy, beginning from their home, their communities, right up to the nations. Like of recent, we just, the CRM boycotted the municipal and parliamentary elections. It's a continuation of our training, because we are training our women to be perfect mayors of tomorrow's election, to be perfect parliamentarians, be able to bring up projects at the National Assembly that will suit the community. Because if you want to look, you will discover that there are a lot of projects that are being left undone by mayors, by deputies, because they don't have the background, the know-how on how to start this project, how to commence, how to middling with the project, and how to end this project. So that's why the CRM, under my leadership, the National Women's President, have decided to take this training, to train our women to be better administrators in Cameroon.
Where are the participants coming from?
We have the participants from the north, from extreme north, from Adamawa region, from south, from east, from center, from Littoral, from western region. I mean, all the 10 regions in Cameroon are represented.
Awasum Mispa Free, President of the Women's Wing of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party, speaking. The talking point is up next. Thanks for joining us in Talking Points. We are receiving a diasporan. Dr. Ita Ewane is of the Cameroon Patriotic Diaspora Forum. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Babila, and I'm glad to be your guest on this edition of the 6 p.m. evening news.
All right. After the major national dialogue, which some of some of the diasporans took part, and after the beginning of the implementation of some of the resolutions of the major national dialogue. How is the diaspora faring today? Is it still divided?
Well, Mr. Babila, I think you know much better than I do that the diaspora is still very divided, despite some of the what I call cosmetic solutions offered by the state to the Anglophone problem. Well, we still have people who hold contrary opinions. We of the CPD, we've remained very consistent. I mean, what we see is Mr. Biya being the problem to the crisis in Cameroon, and we do not see him to be part of the solution. So whatever he's doing, he's not touching the bottom of the problem. The problem is much deeper than what he's been doing. So some of the solutions that have been offered so far, for me, are just an oversimplification of a far more complex reality.
Why do you qualify the solutions, the actions, the measures taken by government this far to solve the crisis, to restore normalcy in the northwest and southwest regions as cosmetic?
Yeah, Mr. Babila, maybe it would be nice for you to remind me of some of the solutions that have been put in place by the state. And I can offer a comment on each of the solutions. And I'll be able to convince you as to why I think they are just cosmetic and that they do not touch the reality of the crisis.
The most recent is the promulgation into law of the controversial bills on the decentralization and, of course, the spatial status of the northwest and southwest regions, and, of course, the bill on bilingualism, the use of the English and French languages in the French and English parts of the country in the courts. And these bills have been highly criticized, but they were adopted in Parliament, notably the code on the bill on decentralization adopted without any amendment, and now they have been promulgated into law. What do you think about this bill and the special status that is being that is in the process of being implemented in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon?
Now, let me begin with what you call the special status. I think this is a slap on the face of every Anglophone in this country. Now, you cannot take people who had a federation, who lived in a federation, went out of it, maybe without an agreement, and you come back to offer them something that is far much lesser than the federation that they abandoned. Now, decentralization this bill has been in place for 22 years or more. It was never implemented. It's not been successful. We are living in a crisis. For the past 3 years, 4 years, students have not been to school. Our people are still living in the bushes, and you come back again and offer them decentralization. The request from the people of the Northwest and the Southwest has not been for the government to grant them some part of the state authority. It goes far beyond that. And that's why people, and including us of the CPD, have been asking for a federation. Now, we've not settled on the type of federation that it should take. It could be a 2-state, it could be a 10-state, but then we are asking for a federation. It's different from a decentralization. Decentralization looks like a gift from the president to the people of the Southwest. The federation touches on the sovereignty of the state. So it's about a shared sovereignty between the central government and the decentralized organs, or the regions, or whatever you call them. So they are asking for a return of some degree of sovereignty to the decentralized organs.
And that's what the government is saying, that it is giving to the two regions some degree of sovereignty, some degree of autonomy, with the regional assembly, the House of Divisional Representatives, the House of Chiefs that was there during the federal system. It has been restored, and the administrative body, and of course the regional council that will be put in place in those two regions to permit them to be a little bit autonomous and to manage their affairs.
A greater degree of the sovereignty stays with the central government in Yaoundé. You need to go back to the bill. Not so much sovereignty has been transferred to these people.
The bill says that the elected organs will freely manage the affairs.
Mr. Babila, we are living in Cameroon. Don't try to make me believe that it suddenly changed overnight. We know the people we are dealing with. Now, a decentralization, it's different from a federal system of governance. In a federation, the partition of sovereignty will be enshrined in the Constitution, and it would empower the decentralized organs to go to the Supreme Court or the Constitutional Court in case the central government infringes in its own territory. So there should be a clear partition of sovereignty between the central government in Yaoundé and the government, the decentralized organs in the northwest and the southwest regions. That's what the people are asking for. They are asking for a complete autonomy. It's not like they are splitting from the state of Cameroon. Of course, there are functions that generally in a federation remain with the central government, including defense, for example. But then there are other organs or functions that have to be completely transferred to the decentralized organs. Are you telling me that the people in the northwest and the southwest are going to have their own police units?
That is not included in the special status bill.
Yeah, then. So where are we? I live in a federation, and I think Germany remains one of the best examples in the world. So Berlin is not giving instructions to other states, like Munich. Munich has a special status. They call it the Freistaat Bayern, so the Free State of Bavaria. And it has a higher degree of autonomy compared to other states in Germany. This is a special status. And Berlin cannot impose any decisions on the regional government in Bavaria. Now, this is what we are asking for. A return to the federation, even if we are increasing the number of states, but then there should be a greater transfer of authority or autonomy to the regions. This is not the case in this present bill. And that's why I say it's just a cosmetic solution to a real problem. So it is time for Cameroon to resolve this problem. Otherwise, we will have to sit here again someday, Mr. Babila, to discuss this same issue.
And earlier you said that the President of the Republic is the problem, is the cause of the escalation of the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions, and so he cannot be part of the solution. How is he the problem? But he has been saying that he wants peace in these regions. He is listening to the cry of the people. He is working out solutions to their plight and so on. But you say he is the problem. How is he the problem?
Yeah, Mr. Babila, I don't know. You live in this country, you know the reality. I understand that you're doing your job as a journalist. You and me know that he is the problem. You did not declare war in the northwest or the southwest regions. He did, and you know they did.
His followers say he never did so?
Well, he did. We did. When he said, we now understand Cameroon is at war. When a president says a country is at war, it's a declaration of war. That is what George W. Bush did after 9/11. He said, we are at war. That is a declaration of war. He declared war. He sent the troops in the southwest and the northwest province. Even if he's not an actor on the field, he takes political responsibility because the people of Cameroon entrusted him with the legitimacy that he enjoys. And so he takes political responsibility for all his actions. So whoever commits atrocities on the ground, the president is largely responsible for that. He's not made any effort to try to resolve this crisis. We are going into the 4th year. Children have not been to school. People have offered solutions. People have made recommendations. The CPD has made a lot of recommendations. We have asked for the end. He can unilaterally declare an end to the war. He can ask for the withdrawal of troops and call for a cessation of hostilities. We asked for a national dialogue. He offered of a sham, a shadow of a dialogue. We saw a monologue, a kind of a CPDM conference that was so well packaged and handed over to a number of handclappers.
But if you say he is responsible for what is happening in the two regions, the atrocities being committed there, he should logically be solving the problem.
Well,
you think that he should not be part of the problem? He is the head of state.
He is the head of state, even if his legitimacy is contested at the moment. You know that very well. Mr. Kamto says he is the head of state. So the legitimacy of the president is already contested. And the president is only as legitimate as much as the people accept it. Now you have a large part of the MRC or the CRM party cannot be taken for granted. They have a huge number of Cameroonians that still believe that their leader won the elections. And that's why I'm saying I'm not a member of the CRM party. I'm not a sympathizer either.
Even though the Constitutional Council declared him the winner of the
the Constitutional Council, look at the composition of the council. And then we can begin questioning the legitimacy of the council itself also. Now you cannot have civil servants and people whose membership to the ruling party is not a secret, and you call it a constitutional council.
And despite the
this
fact
is supposed to be the highest judicial body in the country that has to be non-partisan. But these people have well-identifiable colors. They are members of the CPDM, the ruling CPDM party.
No, they say they resigned from their political affiliations after the appointment.
Mr. Babila, after the appointment, you resign. That's just a resignation. You can write what kind of thing on a piece of paper and hand it into the authorities. Now, belonging to a party, it's not just about mere declarations. It's far more than that. It's a belief. It's an ideology. They have internalized this, and from their acts, you can see that despite the fact that they have resigned, as they made us to believe, I don't know if you saw a resignation letter from any of them. I think they should go ahead and publish them in the newspapers so we can see the resignation letters.
Despite the question marks on the legitimacy of the head of state, he's the head of state now and should be solving the problems in his country. So
that's why we at the CPD are asking for his resignation. A leader who has the interest of the people.
Why should he resign?
If he has the interest of the Cameroonian people at mind, I think the best thing he can offer us right now is his resignation. He's not been able to resolve a minor crisis that has been transformed into a civil war. You will tell me also that it's not a civil war. It has been transformed into a civil war because of a leader's inability to manage a little crisis. We live in countries where the German Chancellor, who's on a visit, hears that there is an incident in any part of Germany with a single casualty. She returns immediately because she is the crisis manager. This is a crisis manager who has not been on the scene. He doesn't know the reality of his people. He has shown by all standards that he lacks what it takes to resolve the problem in Cameroon. He cannot resolve this problem.
But Doctor, that's
why we are working within the CPD. Our leitmotif is a regime change. That's what we want to see in Yaoundé. We don't belong to any political party. We have people from all political parties. But we are working for a regime change. We don't care who comes after Mr. Biya. But it could be as well someone from the CPDM. But we have lived.
There should be a change.
Yeah.
But the question, some members of the CPDM, some government members, other Cameroonians will ask you is, should a leader, should a shepherd abandon his people in times of trouble or find solutions to the problem?
Yeah, when you're unable to find adequate solutions, the next thing you do is to resign and give another person the opportunity to try to do better. That's also a quality of leadership. A leader should be able to know when they have reached their elastic limits. If Mr. Biya has exhausted everything he had as solutions, yet the crisis persists. We are still living in the crisis. So this is a clear indication you don't need to be the next Einstein to know that Mr. Biya hasn't got solutions to the Anglophone problem. Now you just evoked a bill on bilingualism. That's another provocation because that's exactly where the crisis started. And you're still bringing back the same French language into English courts. I fear for the future of this country. It could get worse. And so we have to rise up as Cameroonians and tell Mr. Biya, You've touched the limit. You've touched the peak of your career. You cannot move any further. We need someone else to try to lead Cameroon to the chosen destination.
But that is what the Cameroon People's Party, Stand Up for Cameroon, the party of Denis Njang, the PAP, Popular Action Party, and other politicians have been clamoring for. But how will a political transition solve the problems of Cameroon?
Now,
how will taking President Paul Biya out of the Unity Palace solve the problems of Cameroon?
It will bring in a new set of Cameroonians. It will bring in a new set of ideologies. Now, it's always good to try something else. I was a young kid, I think in class 3 or class 4, when Mr. Biya became president. I jubilated. We were all happy because the change in leadership brought fresh expectations. He gave us hope for the future. So he can no longer inspire the Cameroonian people. So we need new leadership. We need new inspiration. We need someone who can give hope to the young Anglophones and Francophones in this country. We have people living in the bushes. People do not trust the government anymore. And as the moment this trust, the bond between the people and the state and the government is broken, the most logical thing to do is for the leader or the captain of the ship to quit.
Apart from political transition, what are some of the immediate actions and measures that should be taken to restore normalcy in those two regions and then move towards consolidating the unity of Cameroon?
At the end of the Munich Forum, we issued out a communiqué in which we made a couple of recommendations. One of the recommendations was the immediate release of all those who have been arrested in the ongoing Anglophone crisis. This is going to have a huge impact on the crisis. Releasing Mr. Ayub Taber, Mancho, BBC, and the rest will go a long way to appease minds in the northwest and the southwest regions. They may be accused of whatever crimes, but they remain Cameroonians. And we can only solve these problems with those that are involved in the conflict. You holding a dialogue without these people, it doesn't make sense to anyone, will not lead us to anywhere. The second recommendation we made, and we are happy about that, was the release of Professor Kanto and his political allies. The next thing we are asking for is the withdrawal of troops from the northwest and southwest regions. Mr. Babila, we still have police and gendarmes in this country who can keep the peace in these regions. Take away the troops and we can send out a clear message to the Ambazonian fighters in the bushes and say, it is time for us to talk. It is time for negotiation. Drop your arms. But as soon as they continue to see the soldiers, just seeing a soldier in a village in the northwest or southwest creates panic. And in this way, you cannot encourage those people to leave the bushes. We want them out of the bushes. We want our children to go back to school. If you're talking to me here today, or we are sitting here today because we had the opportunity to go to school, and we have to offer that same opportunity to the young generation, but not under these conditions.
All right, Dr. Ita Ewone of the Cameroon Patriotic Diaspora Forum, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Babila.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.